Hello, everybody. This is the Ashland Planning Board meeting of Thursday, November 12th, 2020. Tonight we have a public hearing, 20 Ponderosa special permit modification continued from October 22nd, which it looks like they're asking for a continuance. And we have a public hearing on 300 Eliot Street site plan review, the Bank of America building. Whittemore Estates lot release, design review committee appointments, and we're going to discuss some of the zoning amendments that are proposed for the Valentine Overlay District, what to do with the Valentine property. So we're going to start the first one. I'll let Emma get into this, and it's a public hearing, and I think they want a continuance for.
Yes, actually, just before we get into the first agenda item, I want to share with anyone watching that this meeting is being recorded by WACA. And if you are watching at home and would like to join the meeting, you can do so by using the URL on the agenda. Or if you go to Zoom, you can zoom.us. You can join the meeting using the meeting ID 865-1264. 6250 and the passcode 541553. If you'd like to join by phone, dial into 1-646-876-9923 and use the same meeting ID and passcode. So the first agenda item is 20 Ponderosa, the special permit modification. They have requested both a continuance of the public hearing and an extension of the FCC shot clock because this is both under a local bylaw, which is why they're in front of planning board, but it's also governed by FCC federal laws. So we are looking for both a continuance and an extension.
And how long do they want to continue?
Yep, they are looking to come to the December 14th? December 10th meeting.
Okay, so I guess we start with the continuance, right?
So you can probably just do one vote for both items. We do have a letter from the applicant requesting both at one time, and that because of the FCC regulations, we will need to have Dale sign that letter once the planning board votes on it.
Well, then I'll entertain a motion to continue this until December 10th at, do we have a time?
7:15.
7:15 p.m. and also extend the shot clock to, do we have to put a date on there?
I think to the next meeting, to the 10th.
To the next meeting, okay, till December 10th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, we'll do a roll call.
Trisha Kendall, aye.
Deepa Venkat, aye.
You're muted, Joe.
Joe Rubertone, aye.
Dale Buchanan, aye. And we have one missing, so that passes 4-0-1, right? Oh, well, I guess you would call it.
400, I think.
0-0, okay, 4-0-0.
Excellent.
Okay. Now
The next agenda item is the 300 Eliot Street site plan review. Bill, would you like to get that started, or would you like, we could also do something else if you're still getting up here?
I'm just looking, Mandy, are you with us?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, great. Are you able to share your screen with us?
I can, yes.
Okay. Mandy is with GMR Resources, who is Bank of America's lighting consultant, and they've redrawn the plan based on the previous meeting and comments that we had. And I've asked Mandy to sort of go through the updated plans with us.
Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is our revised plan based on trying to limit the light throw off property or onto other properties. We have, let's see, the start with what we had there before. So previously we had this 3-headed pole here, and then we had a pole head mounted here to throw out to the compliance area. So what we did to soften that throw out onto the other properties is we reduced, this is just a wall pack that'll have much less throw than the pole head that was mounted up there, or that we were proposing. And then we added these 2 poles here. They're both type 4, so they're only going to throw light forward. And then we took this one down, a lumen package, and then we changed these out a little bit to help us get where that, to reach out here where the pole was out here. So, and then I can show you. So I throw off property up here. It's, we're down at 0.4 zeros over here. And then with these trees back here, we're, right behind that light, we're at 0.1, 0.0, 0.2 is the highest right there. But we got one 3.2.
Can I ask a question about that? Do the trees, and I can't remember what the mix of trees is there, but does that take into account winter and summer conditions?
When we put them into the design, we design them with them being full, because the site has to be compliant year round. So, when it's full in the spring, we would still need to be at the 2-foot candles, the 50 feet out from the ATM.
But as far as the throw back to neighboring houses, that would potentially then be brighter in the winter?
Yeah, you're right here behind, we're at 0.1. That's not going to increase a whole lot. So it would be a little bit brighter, but it's not, it shouldn't be too much higher than this right here.
Mandy, how far you go out before it hits 0.0, roughly? About 10 feet out, or?
Looks like 15 feet.
15 feet, okay.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing, I think, and Josh had mentioned this before, I think it was the SH1 fixture on the corner of the building. I think was originally at a 25-foot height, and it's been lowered down to 10 feet, so.
Yeah, and it went from a pole head to a wall pack, so
Yeah,
the wall pack won't throw as far out as the other one would have.
and it's much lower.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're saying is on the property line, it's 0, right?
Yes. Over here, we have 1.2 right there, 0.3.
I
But
mean,
over here, it's all
to the back of the bank, yeah, where the residents are over there. It's at the property line.
Yeah, we don't have the, let's see. Yeah, the property line, so when we're showing the 0.0 here, that's within the property line. So at the property line, it would still be 0 from what we're proposing there.
So AZ1, that AZ, is it AZ? Can you zoom in?
Yeah.
Is it AZ? Yeah, so AZ1. So this is the pole directly in line with the end of the building, which is where the cars currently drive up and use that ATM. And so the new pole would be right there in the blue marker, and the zeros, 0.0, 0.0, all that is indicating that after the addition of that new pole there, that the amount of light the amount of excess light that would be in the area behind the pole, you're saying at 0 would be none, is what you're saying. That's
Correct.
what this means, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Andy, could you just briefly explain the fixture type? I mean, I think we'd call it a full cutoff. I think Josh should refer to it
Yeah.
as a shielded fixture.
Yeah, it's going to be a full cutoff. So what that means is it's a straight cutoff at 90 degrees. So it's not gonna throw any light upward. And then, like I said, this is a type 4, and that particular type only throws light forward. It throws it forward and a little bit wider than I think what we had previously proposed.
Okay, any more questions from the board? So I guess the AZ, what's it called, both AZ1, the one on the closer to the 126, that little bit of 3.03, that's light coming from that pole, correct? The 0.01 up in that corner.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, the house, go ahead, Dale, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just going to ask any more questions from the board before we let the public in. Go ahead, Joe.
So the resident that previously had come, the house is located like right here.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a significant grade change as you go down this hill. I mean, I think just looking at this as it's been redesigned, I'm on something right now. Thank you. As it's been redesigned, this does look to mitigate any light spillage. This seems to be like the worst score here right by this pole, and this seems to be really untouched. And then up here by this pole here, there's a 3.8 and a 3.2, but like otherwise, again, the home is here. So to me, this does appear to mitigate spillage closest to that neighboring house. Just looking at this, if I'm understanding this correctly, and I'm not a lighting expert, but as if I think I'm understanding what this is telling us, it does appear to very well mitigate spill from these new lights. That's my conclusion. Does anybody disagree with me or see it another way?
No.
I'm building on that, Joe. Mandy, I'm just curious why the light levels around each of these poles are so different. Is there something else, that topography, that's kind of driving the difference? Because if you just look at the immediate radius between the two light fixtures, the numbers look so different.
Well, it would depend on, let me see if I can get the.
Probably some of it's blended light from both lights.
That's true. So what you're talking about, the 5.1 and the 3.9?
Yeah, the 360 numbers between both the poles are kind of different. I'm just curious,
Well,
is there something in the surrounding that's driving that, or?
Well, I mean, they're not terribly different. Right here, there's a 4.1, and then there's 4.2 right here. And then Dale's right here in the middle, we're kind of getting some of this throw and some of this throw together.
And they're direct,
but,
correct?
Correct. So this one's just throwing out this way and a little bit wider, and this one's throwing out this way. So.
I mean, I will say that, the numbers in here, this is actually today a pretty dark. I use this ATM at night from time to time. And this definitely looks like it's definitely much better lit based on these numbers and values here. So.
You want
Deepa.
Okay, then I'll open it up for anyone from the public who'd like to comment. And Emma, you'll be in charge of setting that up. Nobody?
Yep. Mark, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm new to this because it's my first time around here hearing all this. Is all the lighting fixtures, new pole and stuff like that? Does this fit under the Ashland lighting bylaw in the town?
Well, it doesn't throw any light off the property according to this on this side.
And yeah, okay. And and the woman there, Mandy, was saying that the lights are 90 degrees and don't go off the property, which you just said. So, and when Joe marked out the X where the nearest house would be, is there any sort of tree covering so the lights can't penetrate through?
Yeah, there's some trees there, but in the winter they're going to be bare. I think they shed the leaves, so it'll change during the different seasons. Correct? Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the bank hours, are the lights at night going to be on after the bank is closed?
Yes.
Yes, the lights have to be on all hours of darkness.
Now, under the business hours and the parking lot size, why would that be if there's no banking business going on?
There's an
To
ATM.
the ATM.
Yeah.
So okay, so you gotta need, okay. How tall are the light poles going to be away from the ATM?
How tall are the poles, Mark? Are you asking?
Yes, away from the ATM.
So-
They gotta be in the parking lot, not right in front of the ATM.
Yeah. So
There-
you're asking for the height of these poles that I'm marking with an X is what you're asking, correct?
Yes.
Those are 25 feet.
The same as the rest of the parking lot. Is that what I read?
Yes. Yes.
So,
Don't
so
match
you,
everything that's there.
so you're saying that the parking lot, those poles and the whole parking lot is 25 feet that uniform together.
Yep.
Yes.
So why would there be a light needed when you can have a small roof over the top of the ATM and a small light looking down at the ATM? Why do you need a big pole and light like a spotlight that is going to go over the building and on top of the pavement? Why you got to need all that for?
I mean,
Well, the site has to be compliant, and so the state requires 2-foot candles of light 50 feet out from the ATM, and so this page shows our whole 50-foot area. So all of that has to be at a very minimum of 2-foot candles, and then if you just just put a light over the ATM and nowhere else, you're going to create a wall where people using that ATM wouldn't be able to see what was around them. So it wouldn't be safe to, it would just be like a spotlight on the ATM, which wouldn't be safe for users.
So those 25-foot poles with the lights on top for the parking lot, it's going to be separate from the ATM. Yes or no?
Well, those poles are helping to light this area.
Now, why would you need all that space for the ATM at night? There's going to be like maybe 2 people maybe standing in front of the ATM.
She just explained it. It's the law. It has to be certain brightness 50 feet around, and you don't want a dark area in the parking lot where someone can sit and wait.
yeah. I mean, currently, Mark. So Mark, this is more or less predominantly a drive-up ATM. Somebody could walk up on foot, but I think most people that are using an ATM out foot are using the lobby ATM inside the branch, because there's one just inside the doors that are locked, obviously after hours, and then this one on the side of the building is really people drive through. And so currently, again, saying that I am a Bank of America customer and I have used this ATM many times at night, like the area where these two poles are proposed to go is admittedly dark. And there's, especially in the summertime when there's no light coming through the empty trees, like it is a dark back corner here. So I would just, I'm just trying to tell you from my personal experience, I think these poles would make this corner and the presence of this ATM here in this location, just from the perspective of visibility of what's in the area and avoiding people being in the darkness. I do think that this would make this a safer, not that there's ever anything happened here, but I do think overall it would make this a safer ATM for people to use in town.
It's all been done for safety reasons. And you got to
Okay.
include the whole parking lot for safety, not just right around the ATM.
And that was going, my last couple sentences from there is, it's got to be uniform with the parking lot, and all of it's got to be basically like daylight 24 hours a day. All light.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this got the Ashland code about light in here. Should be shield, exterior lighting required. The lighting plan shows 6, which is what that is. Illuminated description and diagrams of physical configuration must be shown, which is what that is. So, yeah, like this is my first time hearing, because I've been seeing it on the agenda, but I haven't stayed long enough to listen from the very first days when it got introduced.
All right.
Now that
they're doing this whole thing for safety reasons. It's safer to light up the whole parking lot because, not that they, like Joe said, not that anything's ever happened, but there's a big dark spot. It sets up an opportunity for something. So this is all for safety.
And my last thing would be, like I said, my first time hearing this, and I know it's been in front of the board maybe about 3-4 times already.
Once.
Yeah, once, and they continued it a couple times.
Okay, so yeah, so I'm actually right at the very beginnings are hearing this as you are in an updated site plan.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else wanting to chime in? Okay, if there's Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just got a couple of other things here. So, I'm sorry, the lighting expert, Mandy, was that your name?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So just at a high level, Mandy, would you say that as proposed, if you could go back to the view that has the numbers all over, which is what we were looking at before, if you don't mind? Thank you. So would you say that as proposed, which is what we're looking at here, would you say that this proposed plan obviously accomplishes the lighting goals that the bank is looking to achieve from a safety perspective, but like, would you say that the light spillover in this as proposed plan is equal to or less than the current light spillover on this piece of property?
Let me see if I can find the survey. Hang on one second.
Okay. I mean, I guess like to me, it seems reasonably well mitigated in terms of spill over into those woods.
Yeah, because
the values are very, very low.
They've moved a couple of poles around to face away from the residential.
Yeah. And they would fix these lights to the building itself, which doesn't,
I think this is good.
Yeah, this might be about as good.
It looks like our last survey that we did at the site had zeros over in this area, which you definitely don't want that close to the ATM. So it's going to be a little bit brighter, but it's going to make it safer for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm most concerned about that wood area directly like near that home. That's all. I mean, there's one resident that's closest to it. She did attend the last meeting and voice concern, so I'm just trying to. I'm most from if this was vastly worse, that would be where I would be most concerned. Again, just my opinion. One member of the board. Then so overall what we're saying is like there's certainly more light here, and that's part of the intention and the safety, but overall we still largely have zeros and low values in here, and a 0 indicates there's no light spilling. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. I did see commentary from the design review committee that was shared with us, Emma, that got passed through and along, correct?
Yes.
Is there any, I think, I do believe that the dumpsters are just kind of sitting in that parking lot, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, I'll just read the recommendations from the design review committee. Are you okay with that, Dale? Is that appropriate?
Yeah.
Okay. So design review committee, after presentation by the applicant and discussion with the committee arrived at the following recommendations. Committee recommends that tree trimming is limited to what is necessary because the trees serve as a buffer to the adjacent residences. So with the proposed plan, Mandy, is there any need to cut down existing trees?
I mean, we just want to trim up. We're not trying to remove anything. Just trim up to 4 feet and away from the light. So. Okay,
so you're just trimming trees in and around the pole to allow the pole to shed light where you want it to.
Right, to get the light spread where at the 3 feet above grade where we're going to take the reading.
Okay. Committee recommends that the dumpsters on the site be contained and organized. My only question, I mean, I personally would love to see the dumpsters, have a little enclosure around them and have them kind of tidied up a bit, but is that something that's under the control of the purview of Bank of America?
And also
That would really be a landlord issue.
Right, because Bank of America doesn't own that building. They're just tenants in that space. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I can add, the design review committee did discuss how it might be outside the scope of this project.
I think it is.
Yeah, and so that's all I'm just trying to, they took the time, they gave the opinion, so I think we're just establishing that while I definitely agree that I'd love to see something done with the dumpsters, it's not really in the purview of Bank of America because it's not their dumpsters, so probably outside. So probably would be unfair to ask for anything there. Committee recommends that if possible, the bases of existing lights in poor condition be repaired as part of the project.
It's another landlord issue, isn't it?
Yeah, should be.
So the lights that are going up, those are going to go up on new concrete pads that will be bolted onto new concrete pads, correct?
Correct.
And those are going to be the landlord's lights, right?
Well, the new ones towards the back would be owned by the Bank of America. I mean, by the Bank of America. Any of the new lighting that goes up, the existing parking lot lighting would be the responsibility of the landlord.
Can we see, where are the existing poles on this diagram?
It's this green one right here.
Is that the only one we have, Mandy? What am I thinking?
Yeah,
I think we're showing all of them. Yeah.
It's only in our little area here.
Are there any existing lights? Sorry, are there any existing lights along that perimeter there? I don't think so. I think that's why I think it's so damn dark over there.
Yeah, I think it's only within the parking spaces.
And And to be honest,
Yeah.
I mean, we're dealing with the Bank of America plan to light up their area. So I think if the rest of the parking lot has to do with the landlord too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, I would never, I mean, again, while I may agree that some of this stuff needs to happen, I mean, you know, that's a landlord light pole, right? Like, these are Bank of America light poles, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, yeah, like, I think it's outside my opinion, outside the scope, probably. If there was a pole over here that was doing something that was in poor repair, I would say, hey, as part of this, can we address if there's a dangerous condition or something in about to fail there? I would ask, can we address that? But I don't think there's a pole. I don't think there's a pole, an existing light pole anywhere along that perimeter. And you're saying no.
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, if there would have been, we would have just replaced the
Right.
fixtures with something that would have worked for our compliance. So
For
we
part of getting
definitely wouldn't have taken poles out and added new ones in that area. So.
Okay.
Okay.
So having addressed those, I think I'm all set.
Anybody else on the board? Okay. All right, that being nobody else wants to talk, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, roll call, please.
Trisha Kendall, I.
Deepa Venkatai.
Joe Rivertone, aye.
Dale Buchanan, aye. That passes 4-0-0. And I'll entertain a motion to approve the special permit for 300 Eliot Street. Site plan. To approve the site plan review for 300 Eliot Street.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, roll call, please.
Trisha Kendall, I.
Deepa Venkatai.
Joe Rivertone, aye.
Dale Buchanan, aye. That passes 4-0-0. Thank you very much.
Excellent. So I will be in touch with a decision and
I'll come in and sign it.
okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Bill.
Take care.
Thanks, Mandy. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so next on the agenda is the lot release for Whittemore Estates.
Yes, so this is an administrative item. Whittemore Estates, we are ready to release lots 10, 11, 12, and 13, so they can proceed forward with installing septic and wells. We are holding back lots 7, 8, and 9 until a bond is submitted, which is standard practice. So they will be back again for more lot releases. And this is something that we'll just need a vote on by the planning board to approve the lot releases. And then if we can get a vote to allow Dale to sign on behalf of the planning board in that way. This does have to be notarized. So I think, especially for this one, it would be good to have one person sign instead of coordinating a notary signature amongst all 4.
Okay. Any questions from the
So-
board members? Joe?
Yeah, so can you just kind of level set with Whittemore Estates? So how many unbuilt lots are there still in Whittemore Estates at this point of time?
So Whittemore Estates, they have not had any lots released before now. They have built the road. They put a binder coat down on the road into the property. And so at this point, they are ready to start moving forward with their first kind of set of lots. And which is
Remind me, Emma, this was the one that where was discussion about a sewer connection so as not to do septic
Yes.
That was then abandoned. So this is that development, right?
So they've stayed with their original subdivision plan, which shows septics and wells for all lots.
Okay. And so they want us to release how many of the lots as part of this request?
They are looking for 4 lots, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Of a total of 13.
Yes. Hold on 1 second.
I was gonna say, do we have that diagram that we've seen before of the site?
Yep, I can pull up the plan and just a second.
'Cause I also went through that they were going to add, I think they were going to add a lot and then they took it out. Is that right? The
Yes,
one-
and that was because of their desire to
Connect with
do
the town.
sewer. So if they were able to do sewer, that would free up more space without the septic. Here we
Mhm.
go. Sorry, 1 second. Let me just screen share this.
So they're gonna go ahead and if we do this, they're gonna go ahead and do those first 4, and then they'll be coming back for the next set, whatever that is. And then we'll require a bond on that one.
Yeah, so yeah, once they submit the bond, we'll be able to release the lots. Are you guys seeing the plan?
Yep, we can see. Yep.
Yeah. So
10, 11, 12, and 13.
Those 4
there's
around the cul-de-sac there.
so there's, yeah, and there's,
Furthest back.
I believe the numbering included the first development along Whittemore Drive.
So this is 10, 11, 12, 13. Those are the 4. So what are you saying about the first development? I'm sorry, I'm not following you there, Emma.
Sorry, just saying that there's not actually 13 lots in the subdivision in question, because the first 6 lots.
Have already.
Hold on, how do you do that annotate thing? Excellent. The first 6 lots are along Whittemore, have already been developed and are done.
Right. Okay, so the total. Go ahead, Dale.
Phase 1.
Yeah.
So there's
So the total
only
number of lots left to be developed are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 lots left.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, got it.
if we release.
And so
4,
what's
then the,
what's the sorry, Dale, go ahead. I'm gonna stop.
Go ahead.
What's the amount of bond that we're holding, that the town is holding on this these 7?
You know, that is a great question. We haven't received the bond yet, and I think they're still discussing with Peter the amount. So that's not done,
I mean,
which is why we're
yeah.
back
So
to the lots.
Yeah, I mean, is it custom? Is it what's our typical behavior here? Like, if we don't have a bond in place, would we release any lots until there's a bond in place?
No, it is pretty standard to release some of the lots so they can get started on building while the bond is settled.
And what is the recourse if the bond isn't settled?
We don't
If we
release
don't-
the last
We
3,
don't release the other 3.
then they can't build.
But they can still build the 4 that they have going.
Yes.
And if the developer were to go belly up, I'm not saying that they would, but if the developer were to hit bankruptcy between now and the time the bond is settled, there would be no funds available for the town of Ashland to deal with the situation out there, right? That is the whole intent of the bond, the bonding, that money is basically put in place via this bond in escrow so that in the event the developer can't finish the work, the town has some funds available for it to finish the street, finish whatever services need to go in the ground, right? Like so that it's not, the town doesn't suffer the loss of if a developer were to fail, right? That's our purpose here, right?
Yes.
And on something like this, though, wouldn't it be if they failed and the town wouldn't go in and finish it? Right? Correct? It wouldn't. And we could not give them occupancy or anything until the lots are done, correct?
Yes. So yeah, the intention of the bond isn't about building the houses, but it's more about the subdivision, which is
Yeah.
the road.
Right. It's the road, the water pipes, the sewer. There's no sewer in this case. The
There's no
infrastructure.
water
Water
pipes.
pipes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As to what happens if the
Plus
developer
the stormwater.
declares bankruptcy between now and getting the bond, which I do think will happen very soon. I'm not.
The bond, not bankruptcy, right?
Bond. Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes. Peter is.
We know what you meant. We know what you meant.
To all those watching. No. So, yeah, I mean, Peter is working on the bond, and I do expect that it'll be here soon, that they're looking to move forward with, drilling their wells and moving forward.
Yeah, I really don't see an issue. We're holding the other 3 lots, and I could see if they were finished and trying to release, let them occupy, sell them, occupancy, that would be a different story. I want to have something to make sure if the street wasn't done, but I think at this stage, it's low risk.
What's the point of having a bond if it's not in place when? And I don't, the financial part I'm a little weak on, but it seems to be kind of cart before the horse unless we have, like, I just don't understand if it's almost there. Why doesn't it just happen when it's there? Like, why isn't, or is it our side that's holding things up, or are they, I guess that's the question.
I just know that it is standard practice to hold back a few lots when you don't have the bond in place. They cannot get any permits without the lot release. So I think it's, trying to juggle a number of different, deadlines and permissions to help to keep the project moving forward.
I just think at this point, if they went belly up, it would just be an abandoned road until someone else took over, or
I mean,
I don't think they're going to be able to sell those 4 lots and have people move in. The road's not finished. But maybe they can.
I mean, Tricia, would you be more comfortable if it was 3 lots instead of 4? I mean, it's 7 lots, so release of 4.
Yeah, I just, it's just, my own lack of experience with this kind of, project and lot releases, and it just, so 3 lots aren't released, how does that help us, but I'm kind of relying on you guys here. You guys are the ones who have been, if this is standard.
It's done it before quite often.
Yeah.
At this phase, if it was more, they were already into it, and this is a whole new street. But if they were a lot further along, getting ready, if they wanted to, occupy, move people in, that's a little different story to me. But when at this phase, I think it's holding the 3 lots is a.
I'm willing to go forward with the 4 release, but I guess my messaging would be that I'd love to hear an update when the conversation. I'd love to hear an update when Peter's back or when the conversations happen. I'd like for us to get an update from either you or him, just to understand the bond's in place, it's been settled, it's been filed, and it's official. And I certainly wouldn't be interested in releasing any further lots in this development until that bond is firmly executed.
And just so you know, this is all pretty much a new board. So if the board thinks overwhelmingly maybe that's not a good practice, we can always change it too. We don't have to, just because we've been, if we do it that way, if the board members feel more comfortable waiting for a bond, if there's an issue with that, then it doesn't mean we can't require that.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say, Emma, in your experience, that this, broadly speaking, outside of Ashland, like the normal practice, that it's not outside the normal course to release a few lots in advance of the bond being finalized? Is that outside of normal course behavior for most municipalities in the Commonwealth?
I mean, yes, in my discussions with Peter about this agenda item, he stated that it was standard practice. I know that in Ashland, we've also had, small batches of lots released at a time. It's not usually all of them at once.
Mhm.
And I think if they had a bond, they'd probably want them all released, probably, right?
Mhm.
So we're holding back our insurance is the 3 extra lots,
Which are kind of the smallest lots. I've noticed, that they're holding back, So, I mean, I guess, should there be a time frame where the bond has to be put in place? I mean, like,
well, they just won't get the other 3 lots until, I think the point is that our collateral is the 3 extra lots that they can't develop until they have a bond. And that should be enough to, encourage them to do what they have to do. And typically before anything even comes up an issue, but like you said, if they go belly up, it's another whole situation. But before any issues come up, usually the bond's in place and everything's moving forward from my experience.
This is where Preston's 15 years of experience on the planning board will always be exceptionally useful. Dale, looks like Mark has a question.
Hey, Mark, quick question.
Okay, thank you, Mark Sony. And yes, Preston does have the experience, but I'm not putting anything bad, negative on the board. There's stuff that's here now. But I'm just looking at it as saying, what can happen, I don't know if it's kind of like developments developed, but what can happen, you can get terms and conditions for bonds. Like you have a term and conditions when you pass a development project site plan. You can do the same for the bond with conditions and the developer understand what is meant from him, from the board point of view, and what the board is meant by them in their point of view, and how to compromise together when you say lot release. And just before occupant application, you kind of have a compromise together where a bond, what is a bond, and what's going to be the main reasons to give or not give. Thank you.
And I think,
Mark, go ahead, Emma. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the expectations of the town are laid out even before the bond in the subdivision plan and in the covenant that the developer enters with the town. So yeah, those expectations are very clear. And yeah, they're not allowed to sell the lot or build on the lot without a lot release. So it is,
So I guess we have to weigh out, is holding 3 lots okay enough? How would you say, insurance for the board members? That's basically what it comes down to ensure that they're going to post the bond. Because once the bond's posted, we're going to release the other 3 probably, right?
Yeah, not necessarily immediately, once they're ready to start building.
Yeah, but I mean, if they come to us and say we want to release the other and they have a bond, then we're probably going to release the other 3. So it's just weighing is holding the 3 lots up until they get a bond okay with the board members. I'm okay with it because we've done it before and I really don't see an issue, but if anyone has any concerns, then voice them and we'll.
I'd be totally relying on others for that this is standard practice, that this is that everything's going smoothly with this developer, that, you know, so otherwise I'd be like, oh, why don't we hold 4 and only release 3? So, you know, it can still get started and that bond will be ready a lot quicker, you know?
Is there any indication, Emma, from discussions with Peter that we're having issues reaching agreement on the bond with the developer?
No.
So no indications of any difficulties there?
No, I think it's a matter that they're ready to move ahead with their, you know, well and well digging and getting those permits. So that's why the lot release is coming now.
Okay.
It's not a reflection on the bond, but more a reflection on their state of, you know, being ready to move to the next step with construction or site preparation.
Okay, well, then I guess we can take a vote, and if it passes, they can do it. If not, then I guess they'll have to come back with after they have the bond. Correct? Or I don't even know if, because they requested these 4 lots be released.
Mhm.
So if we said we're only going to release 3 of them, do we just pick which ones we want to release? And then I guess, and then they have to deal with that. There's no,
Mhm.
Any comments, any ideas on that from Trish or Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would, to release something, I guess I would, you know, leave, if we're not releasing 7, 8, and 9, add 10 onto it, you know? So that's coming from someone who does not know anything about this procedure.
And then I
so.
don't know what their arrangements are with the well drilling and you know, I mean, if that makes a difference financially, if they can drill 4, or you have to do 3 and come back to the other one, and how that affects the developer.
So, yeah, I guess I definitely want to see this bond resolved, and I want to make sure that it's in place to protect the town of Ashland. I mean, there's no reason this developer does not have a history, or there's no history with this developer in the town of Ashland of having problem finishing their project, or leaving the town adrift on something. There's no history of that, to the best of your knowledge, Emma.
I don't believe this developer has worked in Ashland before.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I'm just trying to be sensitive to the concept of bringing them back again to get one more lot. And maybe, you know, is there a reason why they wanted these 4 for some reason with the well drilling or something? I don't know what the practicality on the ground of it is. I know I want that bond in place, but I also, you know, don't want to be an obstruction to getting the work done and getting the project moved along. So
just working on projects like this, because it does make a difference sometimes if you have 4 wells and 4.
Maybe the well driller doesn't want to drill 3.
Save you a lot of money rather than having to have them come back and, you know, I mean,
set up equipment and
So
right. I mean, if there was reason for us to be suspicious or concerned, then we should pull back, but there's none, right?
I don't see any.
To your point, Dale.
Yeah, I don't see any, and I'm good with it, but it's up to the whole board.
I can say, I mean, Peter spoke with the developer and they arrived at this lot release.
Configuration, okay.
And so
Peter's
I feel
supportive
confident in saying that Peter, it was a discussion. It wasn't just a demand from the developer. And, you know, Peter thought 3 lots was sufficient. So not to put words in his mouth, but just in another, you know, I do think it is standard to hold back the number of lots. I personally was not involved in the decision about how many lots to hold back, but Peter was, and he was confident in this lot release plan.
Okay.
So that being said, I'll entertain a motion to approve lots 10 11, 12, and 13 of the Whittemore Estates.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, roll call, please.
Trisha Kendall, I.
Deepa Venkatai.
Joe Ruberton, aye.
Dale Buchanan, aye. It passes 4-0-0.
And if you could just vote to have
And
the
now-
signed.
I will entertain a motion to appoint me to sign for the whole board on this issue. Dale Buchanan.
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
Seconded, okay. All in favor, roll call, please.
Trisha Kendall, I.
Deepa Venkatai.
Joe Ruberton, aye.
Dale Buchanan, aye. Passes 4-0-0. Okay. Now, Design Review Committee appointments.
Excellent. So I sent a memo about the two interested parties in serving on the design review committee. The two potential members met with the design review committee last week and had discussions with the committees about the committee role and also their background and interest in serving on the committee. And the design review committee recommended both of them for appointment to the design review committee. They are not at the meeting tonight. Peter didn't think it was necessary, but if you guys would like to meet them beforehand, we can push this to December.
Anybody would prefer to wait and meet in person or on Zoom?
We can, just for a little information, Ujwala Ponakar, who's, I think I'm pronouncing the last name incorrectly, I always do, but she was the person that I had mentioned, boy, months ago now, because it was like, I want to say it was pre-COVID when these openings came up, that I had suggested to her that she fill a place. And so she looked into it. And so I would, I know her personally, I would give full support that she'd do a great job.
That's one vote.
Who are these two that's called?
And excuse me, Mark, excuse me, Mark, wait, can you, Mark,
What's the
just a
names?
minute, Mark, just a minute. We're still discussing this between the board members.
I think I was just wanting to know the names. The other one is
names of the-
William Novakowski.
Novakowski, yep. Yeah. And I know, I do know Bill Novakowski. He lives in relative vicinity in my neighborhood. And, I would say the letter we received from the design review committee supporting both of these folks to be part of the committee, is enough for me to appoint whatever we're doing here. So.
Okay. In that case, I will entertain a motion. I'm gonna get the names right, huh? To appoint the two members that were submitted by the design review committee to the design review committee. For appointment of, there's two of them for appointment of 2 years.
Yeah, I think to stagger the terms, I think 2 years for both of them would be ideal.
Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion to.
Their term would expire June 30th, 2022.
Yeah, okay, a little less than 2 years. But
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Or a
So,
motion to appoint them.
so moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, roll call.
Trisha Kendall, I.
Venkatai.
Joe Ruberton, aye.
Dale Buchanan, aye. That passes 4-0-0. And welcome to the design review committee. Maybe we'll meet them. Maybe they'll come to a meeting and they'll introduce themselves.
yeah, I will certainly extend an invitation, and I think, yeah, hopefully we'll have more.
Trish and Joe know a little bit about them, but it'd be nice at some point to have an introduction, since we may be working with them on certain things. Okay. So then, now we're going to have a discussion of zoning amendments, including Valentine Overlay District and design review amendments.
Okay, so
Here we go.
so the reason these are on the agenda tonight is to make sure that the board is familiar with the proposed amendments. I've confirmed with, well, we will be having a public hearing for the zoning amendments on December 3rd, which is off schedule of the planning board. But that's in order to make sure we have enough time to advertise before the town meeting on December 8th. Because the public hearing will be after the warrant is closed, we are hoping that the planning board can offer any edits or comments before the warrant is closed tonight. So that when the public hearing happens, we really are looking at a final version, a hopefully final version of the two bylaw amendments. So the first one, sorry if that came as a surprise. I thought we had mentioned it before, but I might be thinking about last spring. So in the design review bylaw, there is a trigger that refers to a section of the site plan review bylaw, but the section that it refers to is not a trigger, is not worded as a type of trigger. And after review by the design review committee and town council, we believe this is an error, and it should refer to 9.4.1.7, which is a specific trigger of the site plan review. So this is a small correction. The trigger that it would now refer to has been used as a trigger for design plan review in the past. So really it would just kind of align what they're already doing with what is written in the bylaw. So if anyone has any questions or comments, we can discuss that.
Joe?
So we're basically correcting what's effectively an error in the bylaws around the design review committee, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So 9.63 describes which projects trigger design review. The fourth trigger states properties with projects requiring design review per 947 of chapter 282, which is zoning of the town of Ashland. Section 947 refers to a section of the site plan review bylaw which concerns building design. So 947 is an incorrect reference. So the proposal is to change it to 9.4.1.7.
Yes, because 9.4.1 is
then points to an appropriate trigger.
Yes.
Yeah, and then number 7 is the last trigger of 6 or more projects.
Okay.
With 6 or
So
more
this is
Correcting a link, basically. Pointing to the correct section.
Okay. Okay. So this is not expanding the scope of anything. This is just correcting a link within the bylaws.
Historically, the design review has reviewed projects with 6 or more. For example, they did review Cirrus Apartments, which doesn't trigger any of the other design review triggers, but it does trigger number 7.
And also I looked at this, the section that it's currently referring to seems to be not about project size or anything like that. It's just trying to talk about the design of buildings. And so it seems a strange thing to point to. I can see where it made sense all this time, that it didn't raise any really red flags, but when you look at it more closely, it does seem to be pointing at kind of an odd section. So, and the one number off, seems like it was just an error.
Yeah. Okay, and then the Valentine overlay district.
Yes, so I sent the text, the draft out. So as you probably all know, there was an area on a West Union that was purchased by the town. And in order to, it's in the RA district, in order to make anything happen in that area that was, kind of intended by the purchase, it needs a zoning change. So this would be an overlay district in that area. It presents a couple of kind of new options for uses. Of course, it's an overlay district, so it's, the underlying zoning still exists. And most of the uses are granted under a special permit, which would be the planning board. So I can keep talking. If people have questions about it, I can answer questions.
So it'll be either residential or this new overlay district, correct? So
Yep.
someone could come in there and just build residential on it.
Mhm.
As
So-
long as it met all the criteria for residential.
So,
But-
I just want to lay some facts on the ground about how the Valentine property was acquired. So there were CPC funds that were contributed to the overall purchase price of the Valentine estate, of this parcel of land. So this proposed zoning change fits entirely, is just the only parcel of land which is having its zoning proposed to be changed is the parcel of land which the town of Ashland purchased, here we're referred to as the Valentine estate. I forget the exact purchase price. I think it was somewhere in the realm of $4 to $4.5 million. And, over $1 million of that $4 million that was contributed towards purchasing this property were CPC funds. And those CPC funds came from historical and open space. And so because CPC funds were used as part of the bucket of money to acquire this property, this property needs to be permanently deed restricted around the uses and the intent of the CPC fund. So historical and open space, recreation, along those lines. And so, so what the town, again, I'm just trying to lay this out in a logical order here, but the town is proposing to do is the town is saying, we're not going to operate this. We don't have the resources or the people to operate this facility in a manner which, people want to see it used. And so the town is entertaining as far as I know, Emma, please keep me honest here, the town is entertaining either a lease of the property to somebody who wants to lease it from the town of Ashland, or an outright sale of the property to somebody, to a third party, right? And again, the overarching thing that I just needs to be very clear is those permanent deed restrictions on this property, they need to be in place. And that obviously would need to be fully disclosed to any potential buyer or person or lessor of the property, right?
Absolutely. So there's kind of two parallel actions happening with this area right now. And I will say it is 3 parcels. So there's the tract where if anything that is going to happen with this property that was the intent when it was purchased, it needs a zoning change. Residential, zoned residential A, that's mostly single family housing. So whether the town wants to keep it or not, it needs a zoning change. And then, yes, there's currently an RFP.
The town did not buy this land for residential. Like the town bought this land to prevent hundreds of units of apartments going up on this parcel. So I just to be clear, the town did not buy this land so we could go build 10 single family homes on this property. That was not the reason that the townspeople voted to buy this land.
Yeah.
Just want to say that out loud.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the other track is that there is an RFP out right now looking to, as you stated, lease or sell to an interested party who wants to develop in that spirit. As you stated, there's going to be multiple protections on this area, including a conservation restriction that runs with the deed, a historical preservation deed restriction to maintain the exterior and some internal aspects of the historic structures in the zone. And then there will be a deed restriction for multifamily units, so that you can't come in and build hundreds of units.
And which parts of it, the barn is historical, is the house historical still, even though it's nothing like it used to be?
I believe the historical preservation will be on both structures.
Okay, so they'll have to keep.
The house was built in the 19th century. It definitely is historical, yeah.
But if anyone wants the nitty gritty details, the RFP is on the Ashland website, and that lays out all of the, because that has to be public information. So that is all the restriction details are there.
And so does anybody know of these people that are interested, what they have in mind for this?
I believe the deadline is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So at that point, the town will be able to look at the proposals. But the RFP as of tomorrow will include an amendment that shows the draft zoning language as well, which should help guide the development. So I guess the question is, if you've reviewed the draft, are there any major questions, changes, or suggestions that we can integrate before we advertise the public hearing and close the warrant?
How many acres is that part? Are all those three parcels, Emma?
8 something.
It's 8 acres?
8 something, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean,
Now,
the thing that, go ahead, Dale.
well, go ahead if I interrupted.
The thing that jumps out to me that I struggle with is for permitted uses. So currently this piece of property is zoned residential A, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the permitted uses under this proposed zoning is single family home. And yes, it's permitted. So that means it's a by right use as proposed in this zoning overlay. And it has a restriction that it has a minimum lot size of 80,000 square feet, which is approximately 2 acres, about 40,000 square feet per acre. So, I mean, the concept that somebody could buy this parcel from the town and, maybe they are going to do something productive with it along the lines of what the townspeople wanted. But could then, take 2 acres. They in theory could build a home on the property and just have a home on the entire property and make it a huge parcel of land with a single family home.
So I think once you layer the deed restrictions in, that becomes, almost impossible. I don't want to go 100% there, but and that is something that is being considered by the team that's putting out this RFP. So you have to.
How so?
So there'll be a conservation restriction on one of the lots, which prevents development. With the historic preservation, if you're preserving that the house and the barn, that is going to be your primary use on that lot. And you can't have 2 primary uses on a lot. So you could not build another house on that lot. So I do think there are some protections in place to, prevent it just turning into a couple of single family houses. I also will add that Jen, the assistant town manager, will be at the public hearing and can really walk everyone through the protections that will be in place through the deed restrictions as well.
So Joe, if you were, are you saying that it would be your preference, and I'm not saying this is possible, you know, or whatever at all, I'm just trying to understand your thoughts. If it was your preference, you would have the whole thing be there is no other option except special permit with the criteria that it cannot revert back to single family residences, period. Would that be your preference?
Yeah, I think so. I think the by right, if we're going to put a by right use on this overlay, right? Why don't we pick one of these other items as a by right use, right? Like, so I'm sharing my screen. So these are the permitted uses as proposed, right? So instead of a single family home on a 2-acre parcel, right? Maybe is there a more appropriate by right use? Again, all I'm trying to do is let what I think that, you know, when the people of Ashland voted to buy this land at significant cost, you know, what was the intention for acquiring that land, right? And I think the intention was along the lines of, you know, using the barn for weddings and functions, right? You know, educational uses, bed and breakfast, farm to table restaurant, a commercial kitchen associated with the, you know, something like to me, like that's what the people of Ashland have said. This is what we want to do with Valentine. So that's, yes, like the single family thing being a by right is just,
I mean,
yeah.
Isn't the fact that it's an overlay district mean that anything underneath the overlay district has to be by right? Or at least one of those things has to be by right? Is that, otherwise, wouldn't you just be changing the zoning? Like it's no longer residential, it is now this zoning.
Yeah, so every zoning district has to have something by right. With the overlay district, it's more of a choice. So someone coming in can choose to either go by residential A or by the overlay district, but they don't have to do both.
Okay.
And with the deed restrictions, if they wanted to build residential and there's already a house on it, they have to preserve the house, correct? Or are we talking about splitting it into 3, leaving the house on the middle property and then building another house on the other property? Is there enough frontage and all that to someone could come in and fix up the barn and keep the house and then you have the map, there it is, and then put a single family residence on the one next to it? Or is there not enough square footage on that lot? Or
so both the underlying zoning and the overlay district do not allow 2-family or multifamily. So the intention of splitting the house into multiple units would be a no-go.
okay.
For reference, the lowermost lot, that frontage is 150 feet. And that is the required frontage in the underlying zoning district. So again, I think the combination of deed restrictions and wetlands, to be honest, would severely limit someone who wanted to come in and put as many houses as they could on the properties.
Which in the end would only be 4, right?
It could be,
Or,
so the top
Parcel there.
the top parcel is lot 1. That's where the conservation restriction is going. So my understanding is that there will not be development in that parcel. The middle parcel has a house that will be have a historical preservation deed restriction on it. So again, that will have to be preserved. And so that will be the primary use on the site. The lowermost lot, we are currently doing the math on whether that is a buildable lot.
So in the case of, say, worst case scenario, that there's no developers that want to that want to go near this thing. We don't have any offers. No one wants to touch it. But someone comes in and say, hey, I would love to restore that home into a single family home and live in it and have that barn be my own workshop. That would be allowable, under this.
So
I'm just saying that maybe that's not necessarily that, yes.
that wouldn't necessarily fall under this overlay district. But if taken apart from everything else that's going on with the property, possibly yes.
I'm just wondering, I'm not saying that would be a bad thing necessarily. Yes. I guess I'm wondering with what Joe's saying, the town, yes, bought this hoping that maybe it would become a real asset to the community, but I think it also purchased it to prevent it from becoming a real detriment to the community. And those things are probably both of the concerns given what they were trying to do there. So just the fact that, hey, someone's going to really fix up that house and live in it isn't necessarily, if the town gets all its money back, or, it isn't necessarily against the wishes of the town. I'm not sure.
And that house, it's historical, but they can add on to it, correct? Someone could come in and add on to it?
I can't answer that. I'm not sure.
I mean, if you look at this overlay, sorry, I'm trying to just get back to my mouse here. Here it says, the proposed use and any new construction shall preserve the rural character of the area as follows. Landscape shall be preserved in its natural state. Proposed building shall be related harmoniously to the terrain and other buildings in the vicinity. Landscaping shall be in conformance with landscaping screening requirements.
Distance between buildings shall be sufficient. So it's
light and air.
I
think there should be more teeth in there in terms of in 5. Like, I think there should be more teeth about, the style of building, right? Like, I'm fine with A through D. That all makes sense. But in theory, that wouldn't prevent, it wouldn't prevent you. It wouldn't prevent you from putting some, an accessory, right?
Another garage.
Preserve the, and it's now. I don't know. I mean, I think
the thought is that a new structure could go up in service to the community uses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we would
have to do some of these community uses. You wouldn't be able to get it into that building. It's probably all chopped up inside.
Yeah, and so like any building should be in a New England style consistent with the Valentine home, right? Mm-hmm. Like I wouldn't want. I mean, would we want somebody to come in and build a glass, or a metal shed that, the storage building down the road would, like, if that came in and got built behind as an accessory, we wouldn't be cool with that, right?
Well, yeah, it has to.
Yeah, but I think, this is a special permit though, right? So any of these other uses would be special permit.
That's true.
And it does state that a sympathetic design to the historic buildings and uses of the site in section 5. And again, I think because it is a special permit, as Trish stated, that the board would have that oversight to determine whether it is a sympathetic design and whether it does fulfill those community, needs.
And you have to be,
unless it's a single family home on 2 acres, which you're saying is impossible with the 3 parcels.
And also who
I cannot say that it's impossible.
By the time someone comes in and buys it, they're going to have $8 million invested in a house.
Yeah.
In the middle of Ashland, it doesn't really make sense.
It's really that the home on 2 acres does already exist. I mean, that is the current.
Which is the existing home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. you're right, Tricia. It's a special permit, so anything that
Yeah.
would anything additive would need to go through that process. Yeah.
I think you also have to
Criteria
be
too,
careful of
preservation.
outlining particular styles, because even if you look at, say, the new Hopkinton Library, right? There's a glass connector right up next to a historic building.
Yeah.
And what it does is show off the historic building. You know, so you don't want to close necessarily any doors. You would just want to be really careful in that special permit process, which is what you're supposed to do anyway.
And in here,
you're right.
The preservation of the design and everything with the special permit conditions is the historical structures that have to be preserved, and it has to be designed to integrate with that. So that's in there.
Yeah. I think those are all really good points. So the one thing, Emma, that I would want to raise, and I'm not sure, I don't think it's probably appropriate in overlay zoning, but the challenge so Ashland's has long had, was one of the early adopters of CPC, and there's kind of a long and proud history within the town of, doing different projects with CPC funds, right? And so the administrative element of things where I think we've had challenges is the permanent deed restrictions on CPC properties, acquired properties, or CPC funded projects. And so I think it's really, really critical, right, that the permanent deed restrictions be placed on these parcels of land in line with the intended uses as funded by the CPC. So again, the process of administrating getting these permanent deed restrictions is something that has to happen out of town hall, and it's not the CPC's purview to do that work. But like, if those deed restrictions are not on these parcels before any transaction, whether it's a lease or an acquisition occurs, like it'll never happen, right? So I think it's really critical that we get those deed restrictions on this parcel of land before anything happens. And so my ask to you is, like, to explore that and understand that, like, I wouldn't support this approach with this property if that deed restriction doesn't occur, right? Like,
Absolutely. So, and I think, so I'm coming at it from the zoning side, and I'm aware of what's happening with it on the other half of the equation, but I'm not as intimately familiar. And so I think at the public hearing, when Jen Ball, the assistant town manager, is here to answer questions and present the zoning, she can also speak more thoroughly to the other side of this equation and what's happening with the RFP and what's happening with the deed restrictions. And so, I mean, and I think that will present a fuller view of what's happening with this zone, and hopefully answer all your questions. The RFP closes in 2 weeks, and then we have the meeting the week after, so nothing's happening before our public hearing.
And who, the CPC and everybody who was involved in making this zoning change, in actually structuring this zoning change and putting the language in?
Yeah, so this zoning change was worked on by Peter and I, the town manager's office, and Beth Reynolds, the economic development director, in coordination with the Valentine Estate Committee.
So, I mean, in short, there's nobody currently on the CPC. I'm on the CPC, and there's a number of other members. Like, no members of the CPC were involved in the creation of this zoning overlay. Like, my involvement in this hearing now represents CPC involvement in this zoning. I think is pretty much where it's at. So, what are the proposed uses of the funds from the sale of the property? Like, is there an asking price here? Was that part of the RFP?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Just in terms of in terms of like the single family use. So it would be like wanting a confirmation that based on all the restrictions you're talking about, Emma, that really there'd be no way to put any other house on there. It's either someone, like I said, kind of if that's the permitted use, that's part of the house. They may do an addition to the house, but there is no, in all that acreage, there is no second house going up anywhere on it. So that's kind of the fallback, I guess, if someone decides they want a really nice piece of property and to make it into a single family house with really good access to Dunkin' Donuts.
A lot of money.
I mean, that's a lot of frontage for the marathon. You could have one heck of a marathon Monday party.
Seriously.
Like one heck of one.
Do it, Joe. Buy it, Joe. Anybody else see anything else that concerns them?
I'm just going to say, I'm just going to say this. And this is, I know that this is what other members of the CPC are going to say here is, the town is considering selling this lot in an effort to do with it what the town wanted with this parcel, what I think the town has expressed it wants done with this parcel. And the town is trying to sell this lot or sell this parcel or lease this parcel because the town feels that it doesn't have the financial resources or the capacity and the staffing perspective to do with it what we think we want. Like, we don't have the money or the people to go run this or do that, or we don't have a committee that is capable of doing that with this parcel. And that's why the town is looking to do this. It's trying to put this parcel into service in the way in which it was intended for the reason it was purchased by the town. So I do think that this does raise questions where if the town is to sell this parcel for, let's say it's $1 million, it gets very murky with the CPC and the CPC funds. And if the town, generates $1 million in proceeds, there are those on the CPC who, I will say, well, that money should come back to the CPC because, so I just, and there's not a lot of precedent in and around this type of a situation. So I don't know. I think we need to from a technical perspective, there's just questions that will be asked that I just don't know if there's clear answers to. So I'm obviously supportive of trying to get this parcel moving in the direction that this zoning is trying to take it. But I'm just trying to demonstrate to this board and as well as to, the CPC that I'm trying to think critically about this because I understand there are those that will question this approach with this parcel. So,
and have you discussed that with any of the Valentine Estate Committee or the town manager or any of those concerns with other CPC members?
I've discussed, so I raised these concerns with Michael when he previously came before us to talk about this, saying, hey guys, this is coming. We're going to be bringing this to you. So I did raise those concerns at that. I haven't spoken to the Valentine Estate Committee. And I haven't spoken just directly about this at a CPC meeting to other members of the CPC, but I just
because it seems like they would want their input in like we are right now. Have they done that, Emma?
Yeah. Well, I think the public hearing that we're going to have with Jen Ball would be definitely be the right place for some of that. I just worry though, again, that public hearing is going to be December 10th or somewhere in and around there, right, Emma? December 3rd.
December 3rd, and then the town meeting is the 8th.
Yeah, so that's like,
Time.
it's pretty tight, right? So, I mean, if there's a lot of concern raised at that public hearing, there's really not a lot of room to turn the ship or go another way, or it either, I don't know.
And I do think
Um,
some of the questions you have do have answers just outside of like the zoning conversation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Maybe I think the approach is, fully fleshed out about how, this would take place. So I would encourage you to reach out to, and I can ask the town manager's office to reach out to you about how what they're proposing is, kind of structured.
Yeah.
the part
No,
outside
I'm
of
happy to reach out to
zoning.
Michael.
And also the.
And I'm sorry for, and you guys, I'm sorry for dragging you all through what I just said. And I know this is outside the scope of this zoning, but I am the representative for the planning board on the CPC. So I do feel an obligation to represent both sides of this here. That's all. Sorry, Gail.
And like Chris was saying that, anything other than single family residential, which would be someone buying that whole thing and living in that house, is going to come back to us for the whole process. So we're going to have tons of input into it then.
So there's no commercial retail anywhere in this. None of this can be construed where you could open up a mini mart, right? Or a CVS, correct?
No.
Because its underlying zoning is Res A, and otherwise you're in this overlay, which is these are the permitted uses.
They can sell prepared food.
Yeah.
By being a restaurant.
Yeah. That's fine. Okay. Cool. Thanks, guys.
All right.
And gals.
And we'll let Mark have a quick comment. Notice I always say quick comment.
No, I'm happy with Joe. You did a great job and represented two committees that you're on, planning and CBC. And I agree 100% how you went through this. Now, Mr. Chairman, and Emma.
Thank you.
Can you scroll up on this that's on the screen now? And I'll say when to stop. Right there, number 4. That's conservation, isn't it? A little bit of conservation laws that they have to go through with the deeds and all this stuff.
Number 4 is kind of a catch-all statement to make sure that the proposed uses are good neighbors in the community.
Not making nuclear bombs or.
Okay, now scroll up a little bit more, because as you were talking about the buildings, house, or whatever on the lot, there was right there, 8.9.4. No, 8.9. Yes. That is a major thing for zoning change. Yes or no?
Well, this says we have to prove it and make sure that we deem it appropriate to protect the interest.
Okay, and scroll up a little bit more again above 8.93, above that. 8.91. Welcome to zoning, Emma. This is the main title, what is going to be changed if you want to put it in the warrant. And if the warrant's closed right now.
Oh, it's not closed yet, but it will be closed by the time we have the public hearing.
Did they say a date when the warrant's going to be closed?
I believe the plan is to close it next Wednesday at the select board meeting.
Okay, which means you need 48 hours to get on the agenda to be on their board before they close this, right?
Yep, so this, the exact language isn't in there yet because we are hoping to finalize it as much as you can before a public hearing. But the fact that this exists is already in the draft warrant. So we should be good for that meeting.
Okay, and are you gonna be asking the select board to put a bookmark in to keep a place for this?
And so that's what they have now. And then when they close the warrant, they'll have the language that will be present at the public hearing.
And the public with Jen Ball about this, was that gonna be before the select board or after?
The public hearing will be after the select board meeting. It will be on December 3rd.
So you're thinking that if the select board is gonna say they don't accept it or put it in the warrant, you can get more information on that December 3rd public meeting to go forth before town meeting.
Yes, the ideal situation is to have your public meetings, your public hearings on zoning amendments before the warrant is
Right.
closed. But unfortunately, because of the timing of this town meeting and when the warrant was closing and when we could schedule a public hearing, it is happening after.
And through the chairman, back to Joe, CPC is happy about what's going on. And to Joe again, do you know, excuse me, do you know how CPC got started in this town? Have they told you? And what was their purpose?
So I know that the CPC was created at the state level, and that cities and towns had to opt into contributing funds to the CPC to begin to become part of the program. And I just know that Ashland was one of the early adopters of the CPC when it was first rolled out by the state. But I don't know the individuals necessarily respond. I would guess Beth Rosenblum, who formerly lived here in Ashland, was one of the founding folks there. But other than that, that's what I know more.
And last thing, Mr. Chairman, to Joe again, do you know that there are 4 buckets to this?
There are 4 intended uses for CPC money, correct? Housing, affordable housing, historic preservation, open space, and recreation. Yes, I do know those are the 4 corners of CPC, and I know that the CPC provided funds out of historic and open space / recreation to contribute to the purchase of this land. Yeah.
Okay, and my very last sentence is I'm for the zoning part of this, as everybody would know by now, but I'm also thanking CPC to keep the monies coming to make this a future to get this going and to be historical and to keep and try to work with the barn and house that's on the lot itself. You should not even attempt to build something newer on a historical lot property site that is historically and CPC well known. That's it. Thank you.
And I just have one more comment too. I was just looking at the permitted uses. All uses in the underlying district except, and then it lists some, but I was wondering about if it's in RA, what about things like assisted living facility, or adult daycare, or, things like that, that aren't on that list, that look like they're by right, I think, in zoning, and probably would not fit on that site. But I'm wondering if those are ones that were considered yeah, they could ask for a special permit for that and see what happens.
Yeah, thank Tricia. Thank you so much for looking at that. Yeah, I mean, if there's any other things in Res A that are the underlying district that are permitted by right, I think they should go on this list. Clearly, we need to make this as
Transparent.
my opinion. This needs to, and is airtight, right? This is, a very interesting, this is a challenging thing for us to do as a town, right? We're trying to, in theory, sell a parcel of land to a third party with the hope and good faith that they're going to do something on it that is in line with what we want. And that's, that's a leap of faith to some degree, right? So
Yeah, and you
anyway,
do,
sorry,
and,
Trish.
and I am noting that any of those other purposes that are by right in the underlying district still are a special permit on this. So they're still not by, none of these things that were by right, they're not by right anymore. Now they're a special permit, but they're not eliminated like boat rental. It's just eliminated from the list. So
There's a pond back there.
Yeah,
So.
I think that's how we drew the line, with the thought that, if someone wanted to come with a special permit application for the ones that weren't expressly disallowed, but we can certainly add, I think some of those were accessory uses, we can add those, and then also the assisted living facility.
I was just wondering if it had been, like, if there was thinking, I mean, I assume there was thinking behind all of it. So, but like there's just to understand that there's uses in RA that are not going to be by right anymore, but that could be applied for with a special permit.
Mhm.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I just wanted it to kind of be, to be known, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can take a second look at the ones that are expressly disallowed versus the ones with special permit. And
yeah, it might be nice to actually just have a list of those, that these things are allowed by special permit.
Yeah, and I can list that out in the uses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the more clear we can be, the better, for sure.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, yeah, ultimately it's going to go to town meeting. So.
Okay. Emma will get all that information. You got all that down?
Yep. And then if you guys are comfortable, so I'm going to expand the use table to be clearer.
Yeah.
And list out all those uses in RA that are or are not allowed. I'll have some confirmation over the by right single family use, a little more information on that for the public hearing. And more information on the deed restrictions as well. So if you guys are comfortable with moving forward to the public hearing, we'll get those changes done and get it noticed.
Okay.
Thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, Emma.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Do we need? Yeah. Do we need to vote or do anything on this?
So this is still an informal discussion. So I don't think a vote is necessary. Once we get to the public hearing, yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
All righty then. Review and approval of minutes from October 8th, 2020. Everybody get those?
Yes. Well, everyone else is reading. I have mine highlighted for some things for Emma.
Okay.
Wow, Dale, finally somebody prepared for this part, like you.
Oh, come on.
My whole life waiting for Joe Rubertone to read minutes.
On line 4, Emma, I think there's just extra punctuation after orders. There's both a period and a comma there.
For some reason, mine doesn't come up with line numbers.
Oh.
Really?
I don't know why.
Mine too, and I've always wondered how the others find it.
Oh.
Oh.
The format in my browser or something is just converting it to a regular.
Oh, you look at it in the browser. Yeah, that might be the difference if it's the online
Word.
of Word.
I just
downloading
opened it in Word.
Do you typically download these minutes and read it?
Yeah.
That's how you find it. Okay.
Yeah, I just click on it and open it.
And mine's probably my browser's set up to use a different program to read it.
Okay, well, just so people can follow along on line
Right.
37, which is in the second paragraph under discussion of possible new zoning overlay district. The sentence was just unclear. Let's see, it starts maybe a sentence before that. In terms of ensuring the structural integrity of the buildings, I think there should be a comma after that. I think it should be ensuring the structural integrity of the buildings, comma, reviewing potential uses that would promote economic development through its commercial uses, comma, and preserving the historical and architectural character of the building, perhaps. Do you know what I'm?
Yeah.
It seems to be a series of things, but it's broken in a strange way that's hard to understand.
What if I took out the first "and" as well? In terms of ensuring the structural integrity of the buildings, reviewing
Comma.
potential uses,
Right.
and preserve the history.
And preserving, yeah. And then continuing on with that, I think you can take out the issue is, and just say it is zoned residential A.
Adding to that, a previous one, it's historical and architectural,
Oh, yeah.
agricultural.
Yeah. That's true. Is that supposed to be architectural or agricultural?
Architectural character, I'm guessing.
I think so too.
Okay.
And then the last thing I had was, if you're caught up, Emma, is on the last page, just above adjournment, when Joe was talking about inviting Joe for solar. I don't remember what Joe for solar is. Is that a company?
That was the entity that, remember Joe for oil, Joe Kennedy for oil.
Oh,
Well, now
right,
it's
right.
Joe. Now it's Joe for solar. So
I could put it in quotes, maybe.
Yeah, I knew we talked about it and I couldn't remember what it was.
Oh.
And then to review this is the solar array. Which solar array?
On the MBT, or sorry, on Memorial Drive across from Cirrus.
So I think we
should
should
say
name
that,
that because
yeah.
we have more than one solar array in Ashland now.
yeah, we have the House Street one too.
Yeah.
Plantings.
Good call.
And that was all for me. I just thought it was Joe going out to the site because Joe's for solar.
That it, everybody?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second,
All in favor, roll call, please.
Trisha Kendall, aye.
Deepa Venkatai.
Joe Rubertone, aye.
Dale Buchanan, aye. Passes 4-0-0. Okay, administrative matters and future meetings, public hearings, anything?
So
We're having a meeting on the 3rd of December, I guess, an extra meeting.
Yes, and then we'll still have our regularly scheduled meeting on the 10th.
And then that'll be it because the holidays probably, we won't have any more in December. So is this our only meeting November?
Yes.
That's because of Thanksgiving. Okay. And a report, anybody have anything to report or talk about or mention?
We had our first housing. Oh, what's the committee called? Housing something plan, housing.
Production plan.
Production. Housing production plan meeting a week or two ago. So that's just starting up and I think it's a good group. So there'll be more to report on that in the future.
nice. Emma, I know we've talked a lot about the Valentine property, but going back actually to it was in these minutes. You know, and again, I'm going to reach out to Michael, but you know, if there's concerns about the Valentine barn and the foundation and this winter, like I made the comment in the meeting that we just did the minutes for that, you know, it's too late for the first. I understand that town meetings in this pandemic are challenging, and so there's no more slots for the December 10th meeting. But you know, I would hate to see us lose that barn at the last, you know, on the finish line here. What we've tried to do with this, I keep hearing that the foundation's not great. So is somebody is David Foster doing what he can to look after that right now? I know, sure, it's challenging. I know he cares deeply, but do we know what we're doing with that?
I am not up to date on the current,
Okay.
you know, protection plan,
Yeah.
but I can have Michael or Dave Foster reach out.
Yeah, I don't have Dave Foster's contact info. I'll reach out to Michael and just see. I just hope we're doing what we can do. Anyway,
There
thank you.
certainly is a lot of town attention on that barn right now. I can say that. So
Okay, that's good.
Okay,
Cool.
is there a motion to adjourn?
I will.
I make a motion to
adjourn at 9:12 p.m.
Seconded.
All in favor, roll call, please.
Trisha Kendall, aye.
Deepa Venkatai.
Joe Rotone, aye.
Dale Buchanan, aye. That passes 4-0-0. And thank you, everybody, and good night.
See
Thank
in
you.
December.
Emma, nice job. Thank you.